The fourth and final part of the defence of diminished responsibility requires that the abnormality of mental functioning, which has been caused by a recognised medical condition, provides an explanation for the defendant's conduct. So we're looking really for some kind of connection between the abnormality of mental functioning and the killing that took place. It doesn't have to be the only factor, but it must be a significant one. The jury, in other words, in order for the defendant to use the defence, must believe that this explains to a significant degree why the defendant killed. Let's take this example of this lady in a car who's just inexplicably run down and killed a pedestrian. She claims at the trial that she was suffering from an abnormality of mental functioning at the time. This abnormality of mental functioning was brought on by her severe postnatal depression. This significantly impaired her ability to understand the nature of her conduct. She didn't know what she was doing at the time when it happened. And she wants the jury to believe that this provides an explanation for the killing. Her abnormality of mental function is what made her do it. And if they believe her, potentially they won't find her guilty of murder. They'll find her guilty of voluntary manslaughter. The defence of diminished responsibility does become a little bit more complicated for a jury, however, when drink is involved. Let's say that our woman defendant that we saw who ran down a pedestrian, we discover that also she'd drunk half a bottle of gin on the day in question. And the question then becomes, yeah, the defendant is suffering from an abnormality of mental functioning, has a recognised medical condition, but is intoxicated at the same time. Now, the courts have made it blatantly clear that if the abnormality of mental functioning comes from intoxication, then potentially a defendant can't use the defence. They would have to potentially attempt to use intoxication. So what happens in situations like these where we have both a recognised medical condition that could be causing an abnormality of mental functioning, but we also have the alcohol or the drugs as well? Well, in situations like this, the courts have said that a jury must attempt to disregard the intoxication and ask whether just the recognised medical condition and its effect and the abnormality of mental functioning on their own were enough to have provided that explanation for the killing. Not an easy thing for a jury to do. On the one hand, the prosecution would insist that the abnormality of mental functioning came from the drink, and that the defendant would not have had an abnormality of mental functioning if they hadn't been intoxicated. So that's what the prosecution would argue. And the jury would have to think, if I disregard it, or is it the intoxication that's causing this person to do this? The defence, on the other hand, would argue that even if the jury disregarded the alcohol, they would say that there would still have been an abnormality of mental functioning brought on by the severe postnatal depression that the defendant was suffering. It would be up to the jury to decide, once it had attempted to disregard the intoxication, which of these two versions of events they believe.